Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media, St. Louis's home for arts, education, and culture.
Today on Spotlight, how traditions have evolved over time will reflect on the city's changing landscape. And then a one-man show about how British author C.S. Lewis went from atheist to devout Christian. Plus, what you can expect at the St. Louis Art Museum's free annual Kwanzaa celebration. But first, the St. Louis roots of the famous Rockettes. Hear their story now. It's Sunday and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
Like Santa Claus's arrival on Christmas Eve, you can count on the Rockettes performing at Radio City Music Hall.
We really do kick off the holiday season here in New York City.
That iconic sound has been coming from this theater for 90 years. It's a holiday tradition originating in New York City, right?
No, not at all. They started in St. Louis and prior to the Christmas season.
My name is Jean Schober. I am related to one of the Missouri Rockets. She is my great aunt.
Corrine Vale Murphy was one of the original Missouri Rockets, the first name of the now famous precision dance line formed in St. Louis in 1925. More on that in just a bit.
I always remembered Corrine being dressed to the nines.
To Jean, she was just Great Aunt Corrine.
She would wear her jewelry, her pearls.
With the great style.
Corrine always wore high heels up until the very end.
And that was really the only sign of her glamorous past.
She never really talked about it very much.
Until Jean inherited all of this. Dance programs, newspaper articles,
The Rockets work in a beautifully staged mermaid number.
Photographs.
That's one of my favorite because that is just such a typical picture of back in the 20s.
And letters.
So this is one letter dated May 15th, 1926.
Lots of letters from Corrine on the road.
We were just about 2 hours out of St. Louis.
With the Missouri Rockets.
May 20th, 1926. Rehearsal morning, noon, and night for the last 2 days. We are all so tired, we don't know which way is up.
Suddenly, Great Aunt Corrine, who died in 2001 at the age of 92.
The costumes are silver with chiffon, the shoulders hanging long on each side.
Was dancing all around Jean's home.
Then we do a regular kicking routine, split on the finish, then get up on exit. It's very good.
Through this century-old cursive.
I was surprised, and I was, really kind of clueless that she had a very full life in those younger years. Because, I'm her great niece, so I didn't see any of that. I saw a very, very different Corrine.
Within a year of them making their debut, they were very, very popular.
In 1925, the Ungod Arts Hotel in Grand Center looked like this and was called the Missouri Theater. It showed movies, but that experience was different too.
You could go to the movies and watch a movie, but before and after the movie, you could see a live orchestra, there could be a variety show, there would be a chorus of dancers.
Russell Markert was one of those chorus dancers. The owners of the Missouri Theater asked him to come up with a specialty dance troupe, and Markert set out auditioning girls at local dance schools.
Really just a few blocks away from where the theater was at the time.
By October 1925, he had a group of 16 dancers with a unique style and name.
He liked the sound of the word rocket. It sounded really precise. It really matched up with the kind of precision and almost military style precision that the dance troupe moved with.
The Missouri Rockets took off.
There was an article in the Star-Times that said that they had turned a group of local girls into one of the best dancing units in the world.
People loved them so much, they started touring the Midwest and East Coast just a few months after they started, always coming back to St. Louis, but booking more and more shows in New York City.
You can definitely see that they're, starting to put roots down in New York.
Eventually, the group becomes so popular in the Big Apple, it moves there in 1930. 2 years later, the group expands to 36 dancers, changes its name to the Rockettes, and moves into Radio City Music Hall. Russell Markert stayed on as choreographer until 1971.
Some of the dances that he choreographed in the 1930s, they're still performing those same dances today.
There is this essence of tradition. Every Rockette that has graced the stage has done the wooden soldier number.
A tradition started right here in St. Louis.
Mr. Market's going to change one chorus to kicks. We had been doing a buck dance and he didn't seem to like it.
Nearly 100 years ago.
Did 5 shows today and also 2 early this morning, making a total of 7 shows.
With great aunt Corinne.
The original. She was one of the original Missouri Rockettes. And the Rockettes, people know that word, but they didn't know that it originated in Missouri. They had no idea. I'm proud. I guess I am proud of her. Yeah.
History Spotlight, brought to you by HEC Media and the Missouri Historical Society.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jody Sowell, president of the Missouri Historical Society in St. Louis, and this is History Spotlight. Holiday traditions in St. Louis have evolved significantly over time, reflecting the city's changing cultural landscape. As St. Louis transformed, new customs emerged, illustrating how celebrations adapt to societal norms and cultural influences. Public historian Amanda Clark highlights some of these changes.
We tend to think of holiday traditions as just that. We do the same things that were done before. But of course, that is never true, and holidays are constantly changing, both the way we celebrate them and the holidays we celebrate. The way St. Louisans have celebrated Christmas and New Year's, for example, has drastically changed over time. During the colonial era, these 2 holidays directly reflected the French traditions of the early St. Louisans. Christmas was celebrated with a tradition known as Réveillon. Réveillon was a family breakfast served after midnight mass, which of course the entire village attended, including those that were enslaved. The foods served for Réveillon varied by the family, and it was really whatever the fanciest thing they personally could afford. Christmas Day would end with a large ball attended by, again, the entire village. The ball would open with married couples dancing a minuet. After the Louisiana Purchase happens and we begin to transition culturally, we see the introduction of things like holly, mistletoe, and the Yule log. Christmas in the 20th century definitely looked different, with the introduction of the Christmas shopping season and the famous Christmas windows in the downtown department stores. Celebrating New Year's also looked very different. For the French, New Year's was celebrated with a society ball known as La Guyanée. In colonial St. Louis, families went to the home of the oldest family member, received a blessing, and an exchange of the kiss of peace, which was something also practiced by neighbors who were experiencing conflict. New Year's traditions also involved young men visiting unwed women, kissing them, and wishing them a successful marriage by Easter. Children were traditionally given presents from their godparents. Another tradition was Twelfth Night Feast, a huge ball that featured traditional drinks and food, including a cake with 4 beans baked inside, and the girl who found a bean first was named the queen. Interestingly, one tradition that actually doesn't change much over time is the shooting of firearms on Christmas and New Year's. We see people complaining of this in the early 1800s, the mid-1800s, and so on. In 1874, we see an article in the paper noting that no one was killed on New Year's from celebratory gunfire, unlike the 12 people that died the previous Christmas from the same practice. In 1909, a local newspaper did an article predicting how we would celebrate holidays in 2009. Some of the predictions were true, like people living in tall buildings and devices that could project movies onto the wall. It also predicted we'd be flying everywhere and sending gifts across town via pneumatic tubes. Holidays will always be evolving and reflecting the mix of cultures and social norms of the time, and as we can see, it is impossible to know how future St. Louisans will celebrate and what they will celebrate.
Next week on History Spotlight, how St. Louisans were once able to walk across the Mississippi River.
To learn more about the Missouri Historical Society, visit mohistory.org.
There is one thing at Christmas that often brings dismay. It's getting gifts from friends that you'd like to throw away.
The actor is Gregory Williams Welch, and the character he's playing is C.S. Lewis, the British author and scholar best known for writing the Chronicles of Narnia, which made Christian ideas easily accessible to young readers.
There was a time when Christmas present meant very little to me.
In this one-man show, Christmas with C.S. Lewis, recently performed at the Westport Playhouse, the author explains his transformation from staunch atheist to devout Christian in front of a group of visiting Americans, with the audience serving as their proxy.
The conceit of this show, which is that the audience is in his living room, we actually keep the house lights up to 20 or 30%, so there's a give and take, because back after he retired, his agent would bring groups of American writers and historians, and they would sit in his living room and have tea, and he would talk about his life.
Gregory Williams Welch is a St. Louis native and a graduate of St. Louis University High School, where he studied acting under the legendary drama coach Joe Schulte. Lately, much of Welch's stage work has been portraying Lewis in two different one-man shows, created by British actor David Payne, who originated the role. In this Christmas-themed version, C.S. Lewis recounts his friendship with Lord of the Rings author J.R.R. Tolkien, whose literal come-to-Jesus conversation with Lewis changed his life.
And thus ended 20 years of celebrating Christmas without any regard for a special baby.
He talks about his conversion. He talks about being an atheist, but it's not preachy in the least. He was never a preachy guy.
As a young boy, I loved my early Christmases.
Playing C.S. Lewis is not Gregory Williams Welch's only one-man show. He also tours the country, portraying Winston Churchill.
Churchill, he's a far more, he's Churchill, he's bombastic. Dialect-wise, he had a lateral lisp, Oh, Lady Astor said, if you were my husband, I'd put poison in your drink. I said, Lady Astor, if you were my wife, I would drink it.
The other day, I was riding on the upper deck of a bus going into Oxford. Sitting in front of me were two ladies chatting away. The bus passed a church with a nativity scene in its forecourt. And one lady turned to her friend and said, "Oh, can you believe it? Now they're trying to drag religion into Christmas."
And in a way, that is the intention of Christmas with C.S. Lewis, which employs the writer's wit and wisdom to offer audiences a special cup of holiday cheer.
Our last weekend in Sacramento was interesting. I don't go out often, but after the Sunday matinee, I went out, and this young guy, probably early 30s, came up and he just said, "Thank you." Kind of gave me a hug. I really, you don't know where I was at. I really needed this show. And it's always fun because the audiences are always different, and the way they react makes me react differently through the whole script. So it's never really the same. It's very interesting that way. I love it.
HEC Media, bringing you culture and community. Find all of HEC's positive programming and award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
We are here in the Farrell Auditorium at the St. Louis Art Museum, getting ready to celebrate Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is about celebrating our culture, community, and oneself. There are 7 principles to Kwanzaa: Umoja, unity; Kujichagulia, self-determination; Ujima, collective work and responsibility; Ujamaa, cooperative economics; Nia, purpose; Kuumba, creativity; and Imani, faith. We're celebrating the connection here at the Art Museum to understand each other's culture. We'll have African dancing, drumming, and different art activities, and a scavenger hunt for the youth. Since St. Louis Metropolitan Alumni Chapter's chartering in 1998, we have partnered with the St. Louis Art Museum to host this event. This is the perfect venue because you're able to visit exhibits all year long and experience art from different cultures. The Kwanzaa event is perfect for all ages, whether you are coming to visit the dancing and the celebration or doing any type of art activity here at the museum.
The St. Louis Art Museum loves to put on events like this because it helps the museum become more accessible to artists of all ages and really embrace cultures from around the world, and specifically all of the many cultures in the St. Louis area.
For more information, please visit www.slam.org. Come out and celebrate. Everyone is invited.
For more St. Louis stories, subscribe to the HEC YouTube channel. Connect STL from HEC Media.
Way, way, way in the back of this West St. Louis warehouse, back behind the lumber, back behind the insulation, back behind whatever this thing is,
Santa's helpers.
Santa Claus is coming to town.
A teenager can have this for sure. Santa is a principle of giving without asking anything back, and that's what we do.
And they have been doing it for almost 50 years. It is called Santa's Helpers, but in this case, Mr. Claus is a 76-year-old whirlwind of a woman named Rita Sweener.
High five on that one.
Watch her work for just a few minutes, and you might find yourself getting sleigh sick.
Santa's Helpers started in 1968. We did the one family for 3 years, and then we got 6 families at a school in North St. Louis. And then it kept growing from there. And now we're over 600 families. That's a 9-month boy, that'll work, okay.
Starting on Christmas Eve and continuing through Christmas Day, dozens of volunteer Santas spread out across St. Louis.
This year we're sending out 42.
Delivering gifts to needy families identified by social service agencies.
They've got to be able to say that they know this family and they can attest the financial needs of the family.
Each child gets several presents, including clothes, books, and toys, ranging from tiny soldiers to large stuffed animals, and in some cases, even a bike.
It's the grandma raising her 4 kids.
Some of the presents are paid for by cash donations. Others come from toy drives and from driving a hard bargain.
I will go to a store manager and say, you got a bunch of these, you need to get rid of them, give me a good price, I'll take them all off your hands.
Still, the most valuable donations Santa's Helpers gets every year are the helpers themselves, especially since they've added a summertime drop-off for the homeless called Christmas in July.
I go as the elf.
Tim, I need your height.
Tim Adcock has been volunteering here for the past 6 years.
People don't realize how bad others have it, you know, until you're exposed to what others have to live in, you know, and see what they go through. You just don't know, you know. You don't know what you don't know.
Spider-Man paper, too. He should be happy.
And here is something a lot of people don't know about Rita Sweener.
I'm Jewish, raised by a rabbi, Orthodox. 4-year-old, 6, 5 kids. Okay, now we got a 16-year-old.
After 50 years in the Santa business, Rita has lots of pictures and lots of stories, but there is one that is among her favorites.
I got a thank you note from my father, which is very unusual. Mothers will write. This was a father, and he says, I lost my job in October. We're in the process of maybe losing our home. I sat down and had a talk with the kids about there is no Santa. He said, we are very, very poor mood, Christmas Eve, and there's a knock at the door, and there stands a man in a Santa suit with a bag of toys, not only for my kids, but for my wife and I. When Santa left, my little 5-year-old tugged my shirt and said, Daddy, you lied. There is a Santa. I will always believe. And he wrote, P.S. I will always believe too.
What started with just a few people in 1967, while Rita was still in college, has grown to an organization of more than 400. So it requires someone at the top capable of running a large enterprise. But Rita may not be that person much longer.
Yeah, those would be great for the moms.
After suffering a near-fatal heart attack last year, she is starting to train others to take her place someday. So far, 9 people have been given jobs that for the past half-century have all been done by this one amazing woman, who proves you don't have to be a man to play Santa, and you don't have to be a Christian to have the Christmas spirit.
We don't do it for religious reasons. We do it to help a kid say, you're important. you mean something. You're special.
For more info, head to santashelpersstl.com.
The sound of bells is the soundtrack of life. We ring in a new year, a new nation. We celebrate new life and mark one well-lived. Bells are part of our pop culture.
Every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
And commerce. In 400 AD, bells first rang in monasteries. They were made by monks to call people to worship. In Europe during the 15th and 16th century, the first mechanical clocks were built in church towers. They told time by striking bells. Today, that tradition continues in church towers all across America. One of the oldest, founded in 1855 in Baltimore, Maryland, is the McShane Bell Company. Of some 200 bell foundries in America, McShane is one of just a few that still exist today.
So this bell's from 1898.
Meet James Andrew. 5 years ago, he bought the McShane Bell Company and moved it here to St. Louis, Missouri.
I started working with my father at 10 years old. He built clocks, and then the opportunity to buy McShane came up, and it was something I couldn't turn down. So that was the next step in the process, because clocks and bells are synonymous. They go hand in hand.
At one time, St. Louis was the hub of bell casting. There were 37 foundries between 1821 and 1961. The Mississippi River steamboats, as well as the railroad, transported bells east and west.
Being out of St. Louis allows us to get coast to coast within 3 hours.
His mission, James says, is to keep the bells ringing. Throughout the world, there are some 100,000 bells inscribed with the McShane name. They are found in church towers, courthouses, and schools.
I'm in it to continue the tradition of bells and making them function.
A very large number of them survive because bells don't wear out. The equipment that hangs them, that rings them, that wears out and has to be replaced. But bells themselves will last forever. And the sound that they make rings for a long time.
Carl Zimmerman is a campanologist. A campanologist is defined as one who studies bells. And boy, does he know bells.
The biggest bell that McShane made, we think, was about 10,000 pounds. We have altogether 8 books of bell records from the McShane Bell Foundry Company. So what this is good for now is that if someone comes in and wants to find out the history of a bell, we can look back here. Chicago, Philadelphia, Buffalo, New York, 6 bells. To Whatcom in the Western Territory, which hadn't become a state yet.
This is a clock tower that's going to have a bell. This is going to Willard, Ohio. So we're building it, and they have an original McShane bell. This one was sold to us by a private individual, and this one will be refurbished, and it is going to Santa's Village in Canada.
One of the oldest church bell towers in St. Louis is St. Vincent de Sales. The church built in 1904 has 4 bells, one from the original church built in 1867. James and the McShane Bell Company maintain these bells as they ring every 15 minutes except at night.
So we have 25 bells. These are chromatically tuned, and the way to tune them is to put them on a lathe and slowly start from the bottom and work your way out and take chips out of them. So we call it making chips. So this is the way you get the note. So right here, we have 3 different notes.
The bells, when put together, become a musical instrument of sort. 4 or 5 bells make a clock chime, 8 to 15 what's called an American chime, and 23 to 77 bells is a carillon. There are 190 carillons in North America, including one right here in St. Louis. Concordia Seminary houses 49 bells in Luther Tower, and inside is a carillon keyboard. Yes, Carl the campanologist is also a carillonist. He's playing the keyboard in a carillon. He learned to play while an undergrad in college.
I love the pipe organ. I play the piano. In the past, I played flute and piccolo. I've enjoyed them all, but the bells are the instrument of my heart.
John Klinger is the Chief Information Officer for the seminary. He also plays the carillon. He noticed when he was hired back in 2007, nobody was playing the bells. So he asked if he could practice. And soon,
we were playing the bells once a week. For me to practice and for everyone to hear the bells finally ringing and listening to the hymns again.
Then during COVID, a series of concerts called Hymns for Hope kept the bells ringing through the pandemic. It is the heart that seems to connect with the ringing of bells, striking a chord that triggers shared memories and hope.
Part of it, I think, is that the sound of a bell doesn't just ring and quit. It rings and then it fades away. So you hear it for a period of time, and the sound of a well-made bell somehow resonates with the human heart.
Next week, meet the brothers Lazaroff, who've been playing music their whole lives. Plus, keeping wolves wild at the Endangered Wolf Center. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.